this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a digital marketer in life sciences. And as we get started with our guest, I just wanted to introduce Frank Jäger. He's a commercial director at CCL Clinical and managing director of CCL Faubel, who brings extensive experience in pharmaceutical labeling, sales, and innovative IoT applications. So with that, welcome, Frank. It's great to have you here.
Good morning, Don. Thanks a lot for the invitation. Really looking forward.
Yeah, me too. It's interesting to me as well, and maybe we get back to this whenever we get to the discussion of what it is that you do at CCL. But I find this mix of you have sales mixed in there, labeling, and innovative IoT applications. So it was like to me a very technical thing with along with the sales activities as well. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that. But before we dive into that, we should talk also about the your career and what was it that led you to the life sciences industry?
Yeah, of course. To be honest, there was not a real plan to go into life science when I started. So I did my economic studies, and afterwards, I was really keen to do what I learned is the most important one, speaking to customers. So I found the best opportunity to do that is to go directly into the field. So I became, as a first job, a business development manager for a US company called Velcro. Probably you know them. It's the guys that are inventing the fastening tapes, the Velcro that you know from shoes, from orthopedic braces and these kind of things. And I'm German, so I was living in Frankfurt in that time, and I had responsibility for southern Germany. And yeah, I liked to go out. You imagine this is like 25 years ago. So it was not using Teams. It was not doing anything digital. It was really sitting in the car, going out, speaking to people. So it was really face-to-face communication, but that was perfect. You really got, as a young guy, a perfect understanding of how to talk to customer and especially how to listen to them, because I think that's the key, listen to them, understand them. So I did that. And at that time, I had the responsibility for what we call the industrial business unit. And inside that business unit, there were different industries represented. So automotive was there, aerospace was there, but there was also medical. And I had one customer in southern Germany, Sunrise Medical. They are a US company also, and they are one of the biggest manufacturer of wheelchairs. And I went there for a project to make the next generation of wheelchair seats. So it started with just being a sales pitch, but then it turned out into a 2 years project where we really sat together with patients that depends on wheelchairs and making workshops with them with a lot of different solutions with the aim to make it much more comfortable for them how to sit in a wheelchair and also how to adjust the seating in the wheelchair. And that was really an eye-opener for me because I used my sales kits, our great products, adapted that for what was needed here. And then when I saw it in the workshops, it was really eye-opening how much these small Velcro tapes could make a difference for the patients, for their daily life. And that was good for the patient, but also good for the company because they're producing a lot of wheelchairs. So I think this was really a first-time experience for me to see I can do something good for people in the life science industry, and at the same time also following my economics passions and bring growth to a company. And that was really the starting point how I came into the healthcare industry.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. The transition between economics and life sciences, though, could you explain just a little bit more about how your training in economics prepared you for the roles in life sciences?
Yeah. I think also based on this example, but also in the other 25 years of my career, what I found out, and I think it's with most of our guys in the healthcare industry, we really want to help people. But if you want to do that, if you want to bring innovation, it always costs money and resources. So there are, in my eyes, two ways to be successful there. You have the luck that you get public grants, subsidies, someone who promoting you, but that's often a limited time frame, limited money. So I think my economics background really helped me to build innovative solutions that helps the patient as a first target, but on the other hand, also brings a return of investment to the company. So everything that I learned about product development, costing, business development, sales, marketing, that really is like the foundation to be able to bring these innovation to the patients in the life science industry. And that is why I think it's maybe an unusual combination, but it turned out that it was a very successful combination for patients, but also for the companies I worked for.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of thought to think that an economics degree would help you keep in mind this idea of, the overall impact of the activity that you put in and the output that you get out, and what is the benefit and what is the cost of that. And I frequently have these kinds of conversations with both potential clients about, doing certain activities for them, but also, on the opposite side, internally, with my own team, around the things that we focus on as well, and some of the costs of doing some of the things that we do. Sometimes it doesn't deliver the same level of benefit. So you kind of wonder, is this activity really needed, or, is this something that the customer wouldn't miss either?
Yeah, I know. And that is why I think it's really key to understand the markets, the demands, and then bring the right solution. And then it's also much easier to scale it, and you're not only offering it to a small group, because it gives a return on investment, and that gives you the opportunity to scale it, be it to additional application in the same market field or in geographic scaling. So that turned out to be one of the key success factors, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of your career and the different steps that you made, it sounds like sales and the commercial activities were very much a part of that. I would imagine that also led you to become the commercial director at CCL Clinical, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So after this first business development role in the Velcro company, I had the opportunity to move from Germany to Spain, to Barcelona, where they have their European headquarters. And at that time, we were discussing how to better structurize our approaches. And it turned out that we founded different business units. And one of these business units was called Medical. And I was leading this business unit for the EMEA area. So that was like the next step for me. So now with a broader responsibility, and also again with more insights into the whole medical space, especially in the medical device area. And that obviously brought a lot of additional insights to me. If you're doing medical 24 hours, 7 days a week, traveling again a lot, learning a lot, listening a lot, going to a lot of conferences, but also still taking part in workshops, and also talking to like nurse associations and these kind of things. So always really understanding what's necessary. So that helped me to perform also successful in that role. But after nearly 4 years, more from a private reason than really from a business reason, I wanted to go back to Germany. But also, like, I learned how fantastic this industry is. I wanted to stay in that industry. So I was in the lucky situation that a headhunter from Germany approached me that looked for a person in a company called Faubel in Germany. And Faubel is also active in the life science industry, more specifically in the production of label and packaging material for pharmaceutical production. So it was not so much focused on medical devices, it was more in the pharma space. But obviously, if you think about what is the key, like patient first, all the regulation you need to fulfill, it was the same mindset. and I could take a lot of learnings and contacts with me. So I started there as the head of sales and marketing at that time. But this was a relatively small family-owned company, and it was already clear that the owner will retire 2 years later. And then I jumped into his role as managing director of Faubel. And within this company, it was already like 3-4 years before they started already to concentrate inside the pharma market in the niche of clinical trial labels. So typical German company, very technical driven. They produce booklet labels. So you don't have a normal label like you know it from a bottle with just one page of information. You have here a product where you can have up to 113 pages, all sticking on one final product. And that's something that is required in clinical trials, because one of the tons of regulation for a clinical trial industry tells you that depending on where you perform the study, let's say in France, for example, you need to have all the relevant information on the packaging displayed in the local language. So that leads to this book, which we call booklet, which has, let's say, 40 different languages inside, translated with all the different regulation mirrored in the pages. And that was really the key for this company. So they patented that solution already end of the 90s. They used it for other industry, and then step by step, they moved them to pharma and clinical trials. And that was for me like the perfect ground. So I did what I always do. I went out, I talked to all the pharma guys, I went to all the conferences, I read a lot of books at that time. We didn't have so many podcasts. I tried to understand what was the key. And it became evident that there was a niche open. Clinical trials in the last 15 years have developed extreme. They go from these blockbuster drugs to more and more specific disease. So you need to recruit patients globally to be able to do these trials. So that obviously drives the needs for the booklet labels. So we decided that this is our key and that we would build what we called a multi-service company for clinical trials out of that. So we created a lot of things that we did before the labeling and after the labeling, all with the purpose to help our customers to really concentrate on the clinical trial and not need to think about too much about the regulation of packaging and labeling, because that should be our key know-how and not their key know-how. And that was very successful. So within 10 years, we doubled the size of the company, of the employees. At the same time, the owner of the company became older and older. So he decided to sell the company 2 years ago to CCL. And CCL is obviously a huge label company. They also had already some foots into the clinical trial space. But with our acquisition, we decided to set up an own business unit for clinical. And I was appointed to lead that. So that is how it developed from the first wheelchair application over a lot of medical device jobs to pharma labeling, to clinical, and then leading this new clinical business unit that we set up at CCL.
I think it's an important thing to clarify as well, right? I mean, just all of our journeys, you never know the things that will be in front of you that you'll have to choose going this direction or that direction. And all of this from a recruiter calling you all the way through to, then, helping, the company and thinking about the future, and then now to back to CCL and CCL Clinical. So thank you for sharing your journey. What's the mission and scope of CCL Clinical, and how does it fit into the broader structure of CCL Industries?
Yeah, if you look on CCL Industry, it's one of these big conglomerates in the market, 26,000 people. And they serving everything that has to do with labels. So we are the biggest manufacturer of labels, but obviously in different market segments. So there's one more consumer driven that's called Avery, one that is more in the RFID space, especially in the textile industry, called Checkpoint. And we are part of the label, and inside the label in the healthcare business unit. So it's like the sub-segment of the healthcare business unit, which concentrates on commercial healthcare companies. And we are there with the CCL clinical business unit to concentrate really on the clinical needs. But there are obviously a lot of synergies. There's a huge footprint with over 200 locations inside the CCL world. They're all producing some kind of label, so a huge know-how on materials, on science that we all leverage with each other.
Very good. And then how does CCL Clinical support the research-based pharmaceutical industry, and what unique services do you offer?
Yeah, like we are really concentrating on clinical trials. You are very familiar with clinical trials. Every trial has a unique requirement. There's every time something new. That's for the medication, that's for the patient, that's for the construction of the trial. But that goes through to the packaging and labeling. That's the part we are dealing with. So for us, that means we try to help really through the whole journey of packaging and labeling. That starts really with creating concept for the study. So we discuss with our customers which kind of packaging you need. Is it a blister, a bottle, a pen, a syringe? That's one of the first things. Then we need to understand, is it primary or secondary packaging, because different regulations would apply. Then in the last years, things came into game, like at what temperature do you apply these labels, and where is the medication stored? If you're looking on cell and gene and other developments, you're seeing more and more trials going into minus temperature degrees. So totally different requirements on the label, on the adhesives. So that's the first part. We really define together what is the requirement of every study, developing the right concept. And then, because this is heavily regulated, and there's a good reason to be regularly regulated, the next thing is that we create the text for the labels. So obviously, this is what the patient, the doctor has in hand at the end of the day. So all the key information needs to be there. And like mentioned before, it needs to be there in the local country language. And not only that it is translated into the language, there's also countries having different requirements. So some, for example, want you to put an expiry date on it. Others don't want you to put an expiry date on it. Some want you to put like the telephone number from an investigator on it. Others don't want that. So you always have to do the translation, but also fulfilling all the regulatory demands. So that is what we do. We're creating these label content. We call it label design. Then obviously we produce these booklets. And then there comes the next specialty. Let's say there's a study with a projected demand of 10,000 labels. We produce them, we put them on stock. And then while the study advances, you find out how many patients you recruit. You find out the expiry date of the medication, because probably still stability tests are ongoing. So that are information that just coming available alongside the study. So that means for us as manufacturer, we pull, for example, 500 from these labels from stock, and then have a second printing process where we just print these variable information into it. So like an expiry date, like a study arm, things like that haven't been available before. And that's a very short process. So that's just take a few days, and then we can ship it out. And obviously, studies are always under pressure. You need to recruit the patient, and then the patient should be ideally served directly with a medication. So it's always very time pressured. So we try to make life easy for our customers. That means, in addition to these booklets we discussed, we also offering what we call a blinding solution. So obviously, most of the prime studies are blinded studies. Let's say you have a comparator there that has a different color shades than the IMP, which you don't want. That the doctor or the nurse or the patient, depending on the of the study, knows. So we would ensure, for example, by a special kind of folding carton or special printed label, that this is not visible for the final user, so he's blinded. So that's also one of the activities we are doing there. And the other thing is that we obviously see more and more randomized trials. So we are also taking care of creating the randomization codes. So we have an in-house developed software, fully GXP validated, that also creating the randomization codes. So you see, we call it multi-service offering. So we really have concentrated 100% on clinical and try to do from A to Z everything that our customer needs, and let him concentrate on having a successful clinical trial.
And do you work with clients all around the world?
Yeah, the key area for us is North America, Europe, and then more and more involving countries in Asia, especially China. That's also how our setup is. So we have 3 locations in the US taking care of clinical, 4 in Europe, 1 in China now. So from a geographic perspective, we're dealing all over the world. And also from the structure of our customers, we have academia with investigator trials, but obviously we also have a lot of industry-funded trials with all the big pharma players, including their CRO and CMOs that are part of the supply chain. So there's a lot of different stakeholders that are into this game, and yeah, I think we know all of them, and they know all who we are. It's a small field, but a very dynamic field.
Very good. So I also saw mention of a center of excellence at CCL. Can you tell me more about what it is that your center of excellence does to support your clients?
Yeah, of course. That was born with the acquisition of Faubel and the foundation of the CCL Clinical Business Unit. So we analyzed capabilities, and Faubel was already regarded as the innovation leader in clinical labeling. So what we do there is to gather all inputs globally, all demands, analyzing them, and coming up with new solutions, with new excellence. For example, going back to the point of having more and more studies in a low temperature environment, we would do their testings on which materials we can use, how to apply them. We have here test equipment, so we have own freezers. We can do up to minus 80 degrees for testing, application, and storage. So we're defining the solutions in the Center of Excellence, and then obviously we roll that out to all our colleagues, so that at the end of the day, the whole global industry benefits from these solutions.
So tell me a little bit more about your role at CCL and some of the challenges that you face.
Yeah, I mean, it's a global role. We have these 2 main centers with CCL Faubel in Germany as the Center of Excellence and the headquarters also from a strategic perspective. Then in the US, we have a company called CCL Clinical Systems close to New York. That is the US hub. So my first stakeholders and partners I work with are at these 2 locations, but obviously I'm working directly with all 8 locations that are serving the clinical industry. And then we have dedicated teams there that are with the customer, that are going like myself to the conferences, to the customers, understanding what they need. And we funnel it, and we're building the right tools for it. We harmonize our offering, because what we see is that more and more studies are international. So we want to offer the same opportunities from all locations. So you wouldn't run into any risk of unblinding, for example, if you get a solution from CCL in Germany compared to CCL in the US, because we harmonize our processes, our equipment to make life as easy as possible for our customers. But obviously, that's very interesting for me, but it also brings challenges internally, but also externally, like in all global organizations. We're talking about different time zones. We're talking about different languages. We're talking about different cultures. And on top of that, at CCL, it's like a mix of acquired companies and also like organically grown and set up companies that are part of the CCL Clinical Business Unit. So that's also heritages you need to respect. So it's a lot of communication, stakeholder management that are all part of my role that I like, but that are also sometimes challenging.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really has faced change management until you've had to work with cultures around the world, because we all have reasons why we can or can't do certain things, and some of it is not entirely just based on the things that govern us. It's also our beliefs and the way that we act and things like that. So it's yes, I completely agree with the challenges there being some of the just global change management in general.
Yeah, I mean, like, in pharma and in clinical, everything is documented. You have everything written down, but it's a person behind that makes a difference internally, but also externally with our customers and partners. So that's the key.
Yeah, absolutely. What types of innovative projects are you currently working on?
So we really try to work on different angles. One key point for us at the beginning of our project is what we call a phrase library. So, like we discussed, we are involved in setting up the label design. And traditionally in the industry, it works like a new study once or starts. It is clear in which countries you go. And then you reaching out to specialized translation companies that also offer regulatory service. So you tell them, I need to go to these 7 countries. It is a cell and gene trial, it is a radioligand trial, whatever it is. So they would gather the requirements, they would do the translation and issue these information for us to build it into the booklet. But that's quite time consuming. So there is this idea of the phrase library, and it's not a new idea. It's around in the industry since a lot of years. It was just not really put into reality, like with a lot of nice ideas that's flowing around everywhere. The idea here is that we have built up in the last 2 years a complete database that includes 200 of the main used phrases in clinical trials for the 40 most used languages, including the regulatory requirements of these 40 countries. So instead of starting from scratch when a new study starts, we now just go to our database and pull the data from it. So we have a permanently maintenance service that we do. Every time a regulation change or we get a feedback from a study that the wording needs to be different, we all put that in our database constantly. But like that, we ensure when we pull it out, when a study starts, within a few seconds, we have this information. So out of the total supply chain, we cut out 10 days, which is we're talking about a total time of 4 to 6 weeks for us supplying. So 10 days is a big, massive thing. So we validated that in October last year, I think. And we have now quite some customers that are auditing this process. And just last month, we got the first order placed for this service. So the industry is really happy that we're offering it. They see a huge benefit. So that is one of the big innovations we have done in the last 2 years, and that now we and our customers will benefit from. On the other hand, like mentioned on the material science, a lot of innovation is ongoing in the cold chain area, where we need more and more special materials. Also there, we have developed a whole portfolio from minus 20 degrees, but even going down to the minus 178 degrees Celsius for cryogenic applications that you also have. Obviously, that's a very small part of the market, but still you want these trials to happen. And if there's no label on the medication or it's falling down, then the trial will not happen or will be stopped. So it's a minor thing if you're looking on the total complexity of the study, but it's key that it works. And that is why we developed a big portfolio. And that's ongoing, like new therapies like radioligands, which are coming more and more. So they have it on the opposite. So in this radioligand process, you're going up to plus 80 degrees Celsius. So again, different requirements, and we need to find a solution. And from the tech side, because we talked about IoT, I think the biggest thing we did is that we have changed a traditional printed label into an RFID-based label paired with an e-ink screen. So we will be able from next year onwards to have a kind of laptop in the study. It's a small e-ink based, like it from Kindle, for example, screen. So you can anywhere in the study at any time update information. Obviously, all GXP protected, a special software to it, but that allows you to do expiry updating, which is very difficult nowadays. That allows you to do study pooling, which is very difficult nowadays. So that was a long journey, that development, but we had input from some of the key pharma market players, which will also act as early adopters and what are planning already some studies for 2026. So that will be a big change for the industry, and we are happy to lead this change.
Excellent. How has your involvement with the International Society for Pharmaceutical Engineering influenced your work at CCL?
Well, I think I'm a member of ISP since 13, 15 years. In my opinion, it's a great association because it brings everyone on one table. So it's all the pharma companies are there, all the CMOs, all the CROs, academia is there, and also all functions are represented. So you have study planners there, you have IRT companies there, you have the regulatory persons there. So this is really a forum, and I think it's the only forum available in the clinical trial industry that brings everyone into one table. So it is very important for me to have an updated understanding of the industry, also to influence talks and discussions in the industry, and also creating my network. And obviously, all of these three things are also helping not only me personally, but also CCL Clinical. And that is why it is a very important part for me. And I'm relatively proud and honored that last year I've been asked to join the steering committee of ISPE for clinical trials in Europe. That's something you have to be asked for, and I was asked, and that shows that we have a good network there, and that helps me and also the company.
Very good. What's the greatest piece of leadership advice that you've ever received?
Yeah, I know you have that question in your podcast quite often, so I thought a little bit about it. I didn't found like one real advice that I could shoot out, but like before podcast, I read already a lot, and if you're looking into literature specific for the industry, but also outside the industry, already in the 19th century, Charles Dickens was the first guy who was writing a phrase which is called "never say never." And that is something I found out in my career that is absolutely true. You never know what happens tomorrow. So don't go with closed eyes, with closed mind. Say never, say never. It's more true than ever. If you look on technology, things are possible today. We would never thought that are possible even a couple of years back. And the speed how they develop, it's incredible. But also if you look on geopolitics, on other things are happening, good things, bad things you would never thought about. So never say never. I think that's a very important one to keep in mind and to follow.
Absolutely, especially for, I mean, given kind of your background with Faubel as well, being an innovative company, I would think, never say never was probably, foundational belief as well, inside of the company. Just with the things that your team has interacted with and created. I mean, there's a lot that you're having to overcome in terms of temperature and materials and lots of other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So what inspires you?
I think it's a mix. Like I mentioned with the wheelchair example, it's really great to see when you can help. So in our case, when we can help to have studies successful, there are so many patients out there that still are looking for the real medications that helps them. So with an IC, we help clinical trials to go successful through the stages, to go quicker, and therefore coming quicker as go-to-market and then helping patients. That's really great to see. It's often a long journey, so you need to mirror that for a lot of years to see, but that's great. I think that's one of the driver. The other thing I really like, and this industry is as a prime example, if you work with so many different stakeholders and you work with different cultures, with a lot of different ages, different educations, and all working towards the same goal, that's so powerful. And I think that this industry is a fantastic example of what you can achieve if that works successful, and that helped me for my motivation.
Absolutely. What concerns you?
Well, I think just this week in Germany, we had the hottest week ever recorded, I think. So looking a little bit beyond medical, I think that's a concern, what happens with our environment. So we all should think every day about it. Then obviously on geopolitics, I think we all know we're getting older. We need to invest heavily into healthcare. But unfortunately, at the moment, we're all investing into other fields. We have to do that. But ideally, we would invest there much more money and also put our efforts into that market, because we want everyone to become old, but to become old in a good way. And it's possible. Technical things are evolving so much. So it would be good if we're joining the forces in the right directions and not concentrating on other things that are ongoing at the moment, unfortunately.
Well, thank you for sharing that. What excites you?
Excites you is a few things, like I mentioned already. There's a lot of positive things. You see success in job. Also, privately, you see successes that can excite you and then bring a positive atmosphere for your job and then also for the industry. So I think it's important. We can complain about a lot of things. We can talk about everything that is bad, but it's important to see all these small, little, nice, great things and really taking them and telling them everyone and sharing the positive things and keep the head up, keep positive, and that will inspire other people to be positive. So one is showing an example to the other. So if we are all more positive, I think that will help us overall.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And Frank Jäger, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. I really appreciated our conversation, and it was great hearing about what you're working on at CCL Faubel and all the innovative things that you currently have going on. So thanks a lot for being on.
Thanks a lot, Don. It was a pleasure, and it was the first podcast experience for me, and I really enjoyed it. Looking forward to see you.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it. And last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.